welcome to the Trails Collective interview series. Local Ithacan, actually, now living in, are you still in Binghamton?
New Jersey.
New Jersey now. Okay, cool. Where in New Jersey?
Yeah. Pretty close, right near Princeton, New Jersey.
Oh, all right, all right.
So
Well,
I'm living the Ivy League life.
nice, nice. So what do you do?
So in terms of a job, I am a golf shop manager at a private club up in the hills of Mendham, New Jersey. Um, so with everything going on right now, with all the COVID stuff, work is booming. So I couldn't be busier.
Oh,
Just
wow.
tons of people out at our club, using our facilities, playing on the golf course. But that's my day job, and then I run in between early in the morning and usually at night to um, get the work done. So it's
Yeah.
good.
You run a lot. Well, I remember I met you in like 2015 when you were working at the store. I think still, you used to work for Ian at the Finger Lakes Running Store. And um, did you go to college around here?
I went to grad school at SUNY Cortland.
Okay, for anything athletic related.
Recreation administration.
Okay, so you are doing what
So
you're good
yeah,
at it. I mean, I have to say you are one of the best brand like ambassadors slash sponsored runners that I've ever seen. Like it's really you do a really great job. You remind me
why,
a little
thank
bit of
you.
Michael Wardian, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I want to preface this with how did you
Well, I
get
got I
started
got beef
running?
with that guy.
Huh? You got beef with him?
Oh yeah, we have a long history, but I love
Yeah.
Mike. He's a great guy, great ambassador of the sport. But yeah, we have a lot of fun history, and we'll talk more with the IAU event because we were actually teammates for it. So it's pretty cool.
Well, back in 2015, because I remember this is actually how I like knew who you were. Is you attempted the indoor track 50K, and you were close, but you didn't quite get it. So why don't we actually start there? So you like Mike Wardian, does he still have it?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay,
for
so
indoor
I
track, he
think
does.
Mike has like a 306, and I think you ran like 315 maybe or something close to that. So that's actually when you first came on my radar. So why don't we start there? Is that where the beef with Mike began?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most decorated athletes really for ultra running out there, and it was just, he's known for doing just really funny, wild, zany challenges, things that you're just like, how is this even possible? And that's when I kind of stumbled upon all his indoor, treadmill records and fit for 50K. And he had like a marathon indoor track record and the 50K track record too. And I was like, I think that's a good goal to shoot for. I'm going to give that a go. And that's um, where I kind of, got into that challenge and trained real hard. And, you know, the run itself was pretty interesting, but man, it kicked my butt. So, I mean, there's definitely, Ian, the owner of the Finger Lakes Running Company, definitely knows the lowdown in terms of what really happened. But ultimately, to sum it up quickly, I went out there, had a delicious breakfast in Dunkin' Donuts, because America runs on Dunkin', and I guess I do too sometimes. And had a nice iced coffee and a glazed donut. That was my breakfast at Champions, and I mean, really, I felt really good through probably the first 2 hours or so. It was definitely, I was probably about 10 minutes under my goal pace, under that 306, and I'm like, if I can just hang on for dear life, I think I'm going to have this thing. And it virtually came down to the last like 3 miles of this whole run on this indoor track. And, again, we ran the Ithaca College track, which Ian kind of gave us the hookup with being able to use that facility early in the morning. And, nutrition, everything was going well. It was fun too, because last hour I started actually having a crowd of people that showed up. And so it was like, it felt like it was a real hyped up event. And yeah, I got to 3 miles in, and I started feeling like I was running out of gas. And my dad, who was part of my crew, one of my crew chiefs, made a tactical error and filled up my bottle that I had with some wonderfully diluted Gatorade instead of I was using Tailwind, and my stomach was not having it. And to put it politely, I was throwing up everywhere around the whole track, and I pretty much spent one whole 200-meter lap throwing up probably about 7 times. And I was still, at that after working my way through the track, I at that point was, I think, like 8 laps to go or something like that, so like a mile and a half, and people were just screaming at me like, go go go, you're almost done. Like, and I think I was probably on pace for like maybe like 2:59 or something like that. And I ended up just walking around the track and finished in, I think it was like 3:16 or so. At that time, that was my personal best. I've been able to improve upon
Yeah.
that now, but yeah. So I think that record still stands, but that was my first lesson in realizing that nutrition and, the timing of things can make a huge difference.
Yeah, well, I can imagine you alluded to this on the blog you wrote for Mountain Peak Fitness and Run It Racing, that after a while you're like, because you were going the same direction in that 200 meters, so like one side of your body was just like not functioning as well. And I can imagine that's got to be a crazy thing, That's one of the things that does amaze me about Mike Wardian is like some of the things he does. I'm like, I don't know how your body is still like, balanced and working. It's like, what
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah. But yeah, it was definitely a cool challenge. I mean, I was surprised my body did hold up pretty well physically, like with I guess like the track wasn't necessarily super cambered, but because of how tight the turns were, I didn't really notice having any hip issues or anything. Though my muscles on one side of my body were like totally jacked up in relation to the other side. So
Hmm.
there's definitely something to be said there. Um,
Yeah, I mean, how many laps is that?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it was
That to
it was
me,
5 years
that
ago.
whole
It's okay.
run was such a long time ago. I would say it was probably like, I don't know, 200, 500 laps, something crazy.
Yeah, I can barely even make it through our workouts in Barton, and they're like less than like 5K. I'm like, I can't do this. This sucks. But also en route to that, you set a marathon PR. Is that still your PR, like 2:34? Or yeah,
No,
2:34.
I ran 2:31, like 52, I think is the official split. I ran that at Comset 50K in 2019.
Okay.
So what, I guess it's a year or two ago. That's where I ran my PR of I think it's like 3:03:13 or 3:03:14. So it's kind of cool running with snow on the ground and going through the marathon and being like, oh crap, I just ran my personal best in the marathon and I still got 5 odd more miles to go. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty
So
cool.
that was a fun event.
So you haven't run a marathon PR in an actual marathon.
No.
Do you have any interest? Because I mean, like Cole is a very accomplished ultra runner, but you're also super fast. So like, is there any like before you started doing ultras, did you do marathons and half marathons at all?
Only one. So my story of how I got into trail and ultra running was I had just graduated from the University of Oklahoma. I was a walk-on for the cross-country track and field programs there. Um, More or less, got to run a little bit of Division One and got my butt handed to me, but it helped really, I think, build me for this interest for trails because of just the places that we trained at. We did a lot of soft surface running on dirt roads and some really cool state parks that we would go to. And so I just graduated, and I'm like, I'm gonna run the Oklahoma City Marathon because that's just what you would do. All my friends, everybody that I hung out with, that's what they were training for. Guys and gals that were a couple years older than me, and funny enough, I was like in the middle of my the marathon's in April. I'm in the middle of my training through the winter, and I was like, I'm going to sign up for a 50K because if I can run a 50K on a dirt road in Arkansas, I should be able to run a marathon fast, right? Like that's just how you think when you're just fresh out of college. So Lo and behold, I ran this local 50K in the Boston Mountains in Arkansas, absolutely beautiful area. Ran 3:52, I think, or something like that. It's still the course record but it's like they changed the course. So luckily, I'll have that course record forever. And that was my debut. I went out running run 6-minute mile pace, and then up these hills and got my butt handed to me and kind of crawled into the finish, but ran a good time and took that fitness and put into the Oklahoma City Marathon, where I was second place. I ran, I think, like 2:36, and had an incredible negative split. I went out with all my buddies, kind of helped pace me, and we went out very conservative. And I think my second half was like a 72 or 71 or something like that. I mean, I virtually split like a bunch of 5-10 minute miles the last like maybe 10-12 miles of that race.
Wow.
So it was a cool debut. And then after that, that's where you kind of get to see me as I moved out to upstate New York for grad school, and really kind of got really got to sink my teeth into kind of the world of trail and ultra running.
Well, Ian kind of has that effect on people, I think. I mean, it happened to me too. Like, I ran like one marathon, then all of a sudden he's like, "You should come to Water Gap 50K," and I'm like, "Okay." And then you should go out to California and run this 50-miler. Okay. And then you just get sucked in because like trails are awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty much this. That was the my next race, or first race in upstate New York, was the I think it was the Monster Marathon.
Okay,
and this is when
I
they
did
had
that.
it up at
Well, the half I did.
Greek Peak. Yeah, and it was like, this is where they had it at the Greek Peak ski area.
Mm-hmm.
And Ian was just like hanging out, and I'm wearing like an Oklahoma like OK Runner singlet, and I'm just going out there, and he was like, you should run 50 miles. I'm working on this race called the Cayuga Trails. You should run that. And I'm like, okay, buddy. Yeah, whatever. I'm like, I think trail marathons are good for me. Maybe a 50K. And lo and behold, that was, a couple months later, I ended up starting working for Ian, and was like, all right, I guess I'm going to try and run this 50-mile race. And Cayuga Trails was my very first, real foray into the world of ultra running in terms of real competition and just kind of getting really understand the culture behind the sport. So yeah, I mean, I know that the Cayuga Trails world pretty well too. It's just a really cool event.
Yeah, it's really special. So the first, because I know did you DNF there once or twice?
Maybe, yeah, maybe more, maybe 3 times,
Yeah,
twice,
because
2
I
to 3, something
remember
like that.
because I was surprised that that was your first, because I remember when you finished, because that was like, we were all so excited that you finished after like 3 years of DNFing. We're like,
I
yes,
know.
Cole, thank
I
God.
know.
Like, and it was amazing. I remember you coming across the finish line, like that image will be in my brain. I'm going to try and find it for this interview, but it'll just be in my brain because it was very impactful. I remember I was just like, it was the coolest thing. So you ran the first year, and how did it go? Like your first 50 miler?
It went pretty well. I mean, that was when I got to really run a lot with like Yassine Daboun, who's
Mm-hmm.
incredible athlete and human being. And I got to spend the first 18 to 19 miles with him, and he laid the hammer down, and I started having a bonk because I didn't understand about taking gels at what times, and really understanding the nutritional aspects of an ultra. And I kind of had a little bit of a walk break kind of in the middle. I had like a 3 to 4 mile laps where I was like, man, I'm dizzy. I don't know where I'm at. What's going on? And I was able to kind of turn things around a little bit. But I feel like what you see a lot in young ultra marathoners, which they go out too fast. It feels easy to start off, and that was my thought. Like, I'm running with these guys, I'm like, man, this is awesome. I'm feeling great. This isn't that bad. Like, oh, we're 15 miles in. This is nothing. Like, I could do this 50. This is gonna be a great day. And then before you know it, you feel like you got hit by a Mack truck, and then you got to kind of pull yourself up and problem solve and figure out how you're going to get to the next checkpoint, next aid station. So, yeah, I finished, I think I was ninth place. And virtually my legs were so cramped up that I remember having to like run over to like some logs and like have to lift my legs up one by one over the logs just to get over them. And it was cool. It was like, finishing, I felt a sense of accomplishment, but also feeling hungry. I'm like, okay, like this didn't turn out the way I dreamed about it, how it would be. But ultimately, I feel like I'm hungry for more. I think there's a lot of opportunity to really make up some time and make up some places. And that's really, after that race, I was like, okay, I'm going to really commit myself to really putting in the work and putting in the training and seeing what happens, see where the chips may fall.
So after that race, what changed? Like in your day-to-day training, in your life? Like what changed, and how did you make adjustments for the next time? And like now, like just as you keep making adjustments and keep getting better.
Yeah, I think it was just realizing that I needed to train a little bit more specific to the types of courses and events that I'd be racing. Before, I just thought, okay, if I can run, I kind of had more of, I guess, a collegiate program background of like, if I can run this threshold pace for this long, I'm like, surely I can run, 50 miles at 8-minute pace going up these hills. This shouldn't be that difficult. And really what I learned was the specificity of training that was needed. So, doing really extended hill repeats or just working on different levels of effort-based training too, versus necessarily just focusing on time. So, yeah, just, I really dove in and it changed my whole outlook and philosophy on things. And I think for me personally, I've always been someone that's been very progressive in my approach and thought of saying, I don't have to, you know, have a breakout race every time or a breakout performance. For me, like if I'm able to see improvement each day, each month, each year, those are the things I'm really looking to obtain. Um, just finding little ways to get improvement to perfect your craft, because the more that you do that, the more that you take steps forward versus back, you're going to reach those big goals that you set for yourself. And I've seen that through the, 8 or so odd years that I've been kind of really committing to ultra running. Is, there's times where you don't always have your best day, that's for sure. Even your best training blocks. But it's really about the full long-term approach. And I think now when I listen to podcasts and I read of these Runner's World articles and just hearing a lot about how people are coaching ultra runners, I think there's been more of this pendulum swing and focus to looking at the athlete in a holistic way, looking at them from a full long scope of their career, versus just what are you doing now, what are you going to do this year, what are you going to do next year, versus like what are your goals 5 years from now, what are the things that you're going to be doing in training that are going to get you to where you need to be 5 years from now, that kind of thing. So it's more of a methodical approach.
I appreciate that. I think that in sometimes, I guess in my own personal experience, my like what I thought I was going to be doing 5 years ago is not what I'm doing now, because I am lucky and I'm blessed that I'm not an elite sponsored paid runner. So I can do whatever I want. And so like 5 years ago, I was just getting into ultras and I thought that trail ultra runner, that's just what I want to do. And like right now I'm training for the mile. Did I think I was going to be doing that? No. But I did also talk to my coach that like I want to be good at the marathon in like 5 years. So that's like a long-term thing. But so how have you maintained, like, what were your goals 5 years ago? And are you doing those things right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first got into ultra running, my number one goal was to represent the United States. And to me, being a part of a national team, being able to represent the country is, I feel like, the highest honor and highest goal that you can get. If I win some really cool obscure race somewhere, that's great. But you know, being next to being, you're not necessarily an Olympian, but I mean, if you're kind of in the sport at that type of level, like that's how I always kind of view things. So coming into it, I was like, my goal is to look at these types of opportunities and, you know, try to get there to, you know, one, be a great ambassador of the sport, but also to get to, you know, travel to great places representing the country that you grew up in, that you care about and want to represent. So, um, you know, I've been very lucky. It's kind of funny and bittersweet that, you know, I got the opportunity. My first national team in ultra running came here in August with the IAU global run selection. Um, Not being able to travel anywhere, but was able to be selected and kind of represent the country, which was really cool. But, you know, ultimately it leaves me hungrier to be able to be like, all right, the next time that I make a team, I'm gonna get to be able to travel to the Netherlands, or, you know, to Jordan, or to Yugoslavia, or, you know, wherever it might be. Because I think that's one of the beautiful things about this sport, is that you get to go to places that you would never get to ever fathom even existed. And when you get to see them, it just opens your eyes to really what the world has to offer.
Yeah. Well, you just went to Japan
Hmm.
for snowshoeing. Is that
Yeah.
correct? So were you representing the USA then?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind
So
of
I've
like an
done.
opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was so being a part of the USA snowshoe running team. I mean, it was an incredible trip. You know, our team, both men's and women, did incredibly well. With the men, we got a silver medal, and the ladies a gold team medal, as well as a overall world champion. So I mean, you know, we represent incredibly well. And it was uh, really, it was a trip of a lifetime. Like, me and my wife, we were like, we want to go back to Japan. Like, it's by far one of the coolest places that you could ever think about. And it's if you ever get the chance, to anybody out there, you should definitely go. The food is amazing. The people are amazing. The mountains are amazing. Like, it's a place unlike any other place that I think you could probably ever experience. So should definitely, once we can, punch those tickets and go and take a trip to Japan and scope it out.
Well, I mean, it doesn't escape me that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So going over there, did you have to have like some negative tests, or like how was the race set up that it wasn't just like, because I mean, let's be honest, a race in a traditional sense is like basically a pandemic cesspool. So how was it set up over there that
Yeah.
you guys weren't just like, that it was safe?
Yeah. So we were lucky because it was around Valentine's Day of this year. So it was just before this whole
Oh,
pandemic kind
okay,
of really took
okay.
shape. So when we were there, like, it was, you know, I think in Japanese culture, you just see people wearing masks all the time anyway. So that's something that's just very natural to the way that they do things. Um, it's a very clean country. I mean, spending time in Tokyo, it's a very clean city. Never once did it seem like anything was really going on. So we were
That
lucky.
was
It felt like a normal
pre-pandemic
trip.
kind of. Okay.
Yeah. And like, as we were about to fly back, that's when it was like I think like a cruise ship or something in the harbor or something that had a lot of COVID cases in Japan, and that was kind of all in the news. And, you know, a week later, it was like no one's traveling in or out of Japan right now. So like, we really lucked out. We got there and got the experience and left just in the right time. Um, and then, you know, it was just seeing all the everything kind of play out was pretty pretty rattling. It was just like, I can't believe we were just, you know, a week or two ago, we were in Japan. Like, we may not have been able to make it back. So
Yeah.
yeah, quite a
Well,
surreal experience.
Japan is becoming a really big ultra running powerhouse, and just
Yeah.
marathon running too. Like, I think the one of the women there set like some half marathon record or whatever. So how, like, I imagine a snowshoe race. Let's talk about that a little bit. So how did you get into snowshoe racing?
So, you know, I like to just explore all different forms of running. Sorry, triathletes out there. I'm never gonna get into triathlon. I'll say that here on this. Just can't swim. Biking scares me.
You heard it here, you guys. You heard it here.
So ultimately, I do look at myself as more of a one-dimensional athlete in that regard. But snowshoeing, I got networked with the organization out in New Hampshire, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you should definitely do this stuff." Um, the group is called Acidotic Racing. This guy Chris Dunn, and I bought a pair of Dion snowshoes, and you know, just started researching what the sport was, and looked up different YouTube videos of different races, and then discovered there was a race series in upstate New York where we were going to be moving to, and was like, this is perfect. I'm going to test out this sport. And my first season I ended up doing really well at nationals, and just having a great time. So yeah, I mean, that's really where I kind of caught the bug and was like, huh. And then after, it's interesting too, because after that first full season, when I started getting my sea legs under me, or road legs, road and trail legs, I started feeling fitter. Like the aerobic fitness that I got running in snowshoes in the wintertime was a way to really be fitter come the spring and summer and fall. And I feel like it's the same thing where you see a lot of athletes that are doing this ski mountaineering and cross country skiing and that kind of stuff. Well, snowshoeing is a really great way to build fitness in the winter without slogging the same amount of miles. And it just it's been a little bit of a secret part of my training that I really love and relish in. It's just fantastic. So
Well, we're coming into the winter, and I do not look forward to running on a treadmill in a mask if I have to. So maybe I'll start snowshoeing. Do you also think maybe you were talking about taking a break from the miles? Do you think that maybe it might not have been like fitness, but maybe you were just well rested as well and just started back training like I'm actually rested and ready to start, rather than like I just had a season of where I was running 90 miles a week in the winter, so I'm tired. Do you think that has something to do with it too?
definitely. I mean, I think the benefit of snowshoe running is that, or at least the way that I've always thought about it, it's like running in snowshoes is like half the miles of what you would normally do like on a real road. So if you're running a 5K on snowshoes, it's the equivalent of a solid effort of a 10K on the road. So in a way, like I would equate that in my training, being like, oh, well, today I snowshoe 10K. Well, that's just like I ran like 12 miles. Um, so in a way, I'm getting less actual theoretical miles, but I'm maintaining that same level of fitness, just in a different way that's less impact. You're not pounding away on the pavement. Snow is actually pretty forgiving. People don't give it that kind of credit. And it's also just because it's different. It's kind of goofy. Most people think that it's really complicated and difficult to run in snowshoes. And honestly, the best way to do it, or just to learn how to do it, is just put your feet into the bindings of a running snowshoe and just go out there and go for it. Like your body, you're going to learn how to do it just naturally. Like you're not going to have to worry about tripping and falling. Like, I mean, yes, you do have things on your feet that can catch and that kind of stuff, but it's virtually, it's like running with like extra 1 pound weights on your feet. That's probably the best way to describe it. And it's fun. It's a great way to like re-explore the trails that you may not get to, go and run through in an area where there's a lot of snow. So living in upstate New York, it's like, I really want to run this trail today. It's full of snow. What am I going to do? It's like, oh, well, if I throw snowshoes on, I can like feel like I'm just prancing through the trail like nobody's business, get a great workout in, and just really reap those benefits. So
Yeah, in my brain, I'm already thinking like, well, when the Black Diamond Trail and the South Hill Recway are like full of snow, I'm like, that's a good idea.
mm-hmm.
Thanks, Cole.
There's other tricks too. Like you can do like a hard tempo workout, and then for 10 minutes, just throw some snowshoes on and just run up on a hill. They almost like doing like a stair stepper type of activity or workout. I mean, I would do stuff like that in preparation for going up the steps and for the Cuyahoga Trails 50-mile race. And that always worked out well because it's just building that explosive type of strength. And that's really, snowshoe running is very much having strong, you have to have a high level of endurance, kind of that aerobic base, but you also have to be pretty muscularly strong too. You got to have explosive muscles because you're carrying around a lot of extra weight and you're doing it in very cold temperatures where your muscles aren't just, they need that, I guess, heat to be able to really fire on all cylinders more or less. So um, it it's such a different animal, but it's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds really neat. Now I hate the cold. Like, well, I don't hate it. I just it's a thing that I have to live with in upstate New York. I'm not a fan, but I like winter running enough. But you can't go as fast outside, and I like to go fast. But I'm into that, the snowshoeing. I think
Yeah.
that's cool. So through all this, you got to go to Japan. So what was the race like? Take us through it.
Um, the race was interesting. So leading out for the trip, we were getting all kinds of emails saying, "Oh, we're not expecting a lot of snow." Apparently this where the race site was, they get some of the highest snow totals in the world out of any place out there. And so they're like, this is a freak year. We're having hardly any snow and all this stuff. So and they changed the course. It was originally going to go up like halfway up a big, huge mountain, like a 8,000-foot mountain. So I was training, like doing elliptical stuff and different ways to try and get that leg strength that I would need. And then they changed it into doing kind of like a 7K course versus a 12K. And it was kind of some lower loops. They had to do like 3 loops. Just a historically warm year, I guess, for that area. So I remember on the team bus, we're driving out there and we're like, "Where's the snow? Where's the snow?" And then all of a sudden we look and we're like, "Oh, there's plenty of snow. What are they talking about?" They're like, they didn't have to change the course. And perception is always different, right? For them, it was a low snow year, but I was like, they have like 10 feet of snowpack. Like, I don't know what they're talking about. This is crazy. Um, and I mean, they had plenty of snow. The day of the race was very warm. It was like, I've never run a snowshoe race where it's actually like rained a little bit, but it like rained. So just take this really nice smooth snow and put some rain on it, and it just makes it really heavy. So I know guys team, like we were just talking about, it felt like you were like lifting sandbags with every step that you took, and it was just a slog of a race. It was a grind. I didn't have my best race out there. And really our whole team, we all had moments of struggle. But you know, you throw American flag on the chest, and you just go for it as best as you can. And I think I finished like 16th or so, which I was hoping for a top 10 slot. And it wasn't bad, but it's same thing. I'm hungry. Like when we all finished as a team, we were like, all right, 2021 Argentina, here we come. Like we're bringing it. So,
How
but yeah,
long is the
it
race?
was that race was, I think, about 7K.
Okay.
Um, Originally it was going to be a 12K. Usually snowshoe races at like the national and often like international levels are like 10K. Um, so it's a fast, but you got, it's almost like running, I think, it's kind of like running a half, like a 15-mile road race. So it's kind of this weird in between. It's kind of like, the effort feels like a half marathon in terms of the speed, but you have to have that aerobic engine like a marathon. So it's kind of this weird in between. Um, of course, for me, sometimes the snowshoeing, you can do half marathon and marathon distance too. Some of the national championships at the US, we've had those distances. And I feel like those ones suit me a little bit better because they're more kind of like how you would feel through an ultra marathon.
Okay. I've heard of well, so we actually, because I want to talk about that in a second. So since the pandemic started, you've done a bunch of FKTs and things like that. And when we were talking about doing this interview, you mentioned in the email, what stuck out to me was your perception of how you thought about running and racing and training has changed. So why don't you talk about that? What has changed for you since the beginning of the pandemic, and what are you looking towards doing now?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have to start by saying like what hasn't changed, right? Like it's, I think everybody's going through just really wild times, myself included. And ultimately, it's really just a mindset change. I looked at, um, you know, my big goal was like, I have to run a USA qualifying time to try and get an automatic bid to make the national team and do all this stuff and run these USATF races to play, to be a national champion, to get those accolades and all this stuff. And, I had those kind of goals and aspirations coming into this year. I was running, planning to run some races that would get me a 100 kilometer time that would hopefully get me onto the team for the Netherlands. That would have been going on in October. And then I, last minute after Japan, hopped into the Comset 50K, which I know that race very well. And they changed the venue. But I ran that. I'm like, I'm running some decent fitness. Like, I'm going to try and maybe everyone's doing the marathon trials. I'm like, maybe I have a chance to make the 50K team. So I hopped in and ran that. And so ultimately I could have had a position there too. And so all that stuff changed, of course. And I was like, you know what? Like, why? I think every time you always have to look into yourself. Like, why do I run? What are the motivators of why I enjoy doing this? And I think for me, like the reason why I got into running and why I've always enjoyed it is just the exploration of it, being able to use, human mode of transportation, your own 2 feet, to be able to move through space and be able to experience parts of the world that so many people don't get to do. And that's what I kind of really looked at. I'm like, you know what, I can use this passion and love for running and be able to use it as a way to help others and help inspire others and help fundraise and do different things. And so, again, the whole tri-state area got hit pretty hard with COVID out of the gates. And I started looking into like more like just true running goals. Just things like, I grew up only a quarter mile from the Delaware Canal towpath, and I had run so many miles there. And, it was something that I felt like I could run that trail and do it because it's my local trail. I felt like I could do it responsibly with everything given. And I wanted to use that run as a way to hopefully raise money to help, all the medical workers and businesses and just everybody affected by the whole pandemic in New Jersey. Because one of the things I want to speak to is that New Jersey does not get a good rap. I will say personally, it can be a challenging place to train at a high level, but it's a really incredible place. It's very diverse in terms of the terrain and just the different areas that you find, and you find hidden gems all the time that you're just like I could be in Montana right now, but this is like this river is here in like behind a strip mall, like on this trail, like what? Like, and that's the beauty of a place like New Jersey, is it's so like I like to call it suburbanized, because I don't feel like it's just nothing but big cities. There is a lot of houses and industry and stuff, but at the same time you have pockets of these incredible parks and trails, and everything just commingles together. So yeah, so I looked at things and said, okay, I'm running this canal towpath. Everyone's going to start running FKTs, but that's not why I did it. I did it for a kind of a greater cause. And I'm like, this is my trail, like it's fun now. Like 2 days ago, I did a little run on the towpath. I'm like, right now I'm the fastest person to run the whole length of this thing. That's like I have to tell myself that, because it's cool. It's like saying you have like your local, like this track that I used to run at when I was 4 years old, I've run the fastest mile on this track. Like that's it's just some fun bragging rights, So yeah, I got into that, and ultimately I looked at things like I remember watching videos of this Four Deserts race series. It's a multi-day kind of event where you're running in all these crazy deserts, like the driest desert in the world and chilly. You're running in like some of the like the wettest desert. You're running in like, you know, it's just these extreme environments. And I remember like just starting to get into that early on. I'm like, this stuff is crazy. Like maybe one day I'm going to do this. And this year I was kind of like, you know what? I'm really going to do this stuff. Like these are the things that are really going to motivate me. I want to try challenges where I'm pushing myself to limits I've never even thought were even possible. At one point when I first started running, I thought 5K was really far. Now I'm thinking, you know what? I think I could do 200 miles really fast. Um, and I think I can do it in a way that's gonna, um, you know, help the local communities that I'm running through, however that might be. I don't have a full plan on that yet, but like those are kind of the passions that I kind of wanted to come across. So, you know, running the Delaware Canal towpath, that was quite a saga in of itself. You know, ultimately I was like, I'm doing this. I think it was like the third week of April or something like that. And then Governor Murphy in New Jersey closed all state parks. The Delaware Raritan Canal, it's about 70 miles in length, is a state park, the whole thing. It's a very long trail, kind of a crushed gravel, kind of sandy limestone trail with like a little bit of water on either side. You can almost imagine like donkeys like holding like little rafts or barges on the little waterway. But now it's a recreation trail, and he ended up closing it. And I was like, gosh, dang it! That weekend I was gonna go for this record, and I'm like, oh man. So I had to pivot, and ultimately I ran a 50-mile run, just nothing glamorous. I did it in like a corporate plaza because in here in central New Jersey, you have a lot of these big corporate kind of plazas, which are actually really good for running. A lot of paved trails that you don't get a lot of traffic, especially right now. They're virtually like almost like ghost towns. So they're kind of like fun little playgrounds for us runners. So I ended up doing that. I tried using that as a way to kind of help, you know, raise funds for the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund. And on May 16th, I actually, when state parks were back open again, I got to go and run the towpath canal, which was an absolutely life-changing experience. Just the whole journey of trying to do this effort and then being able to actually do it, and then to be able to do it with the circumstances and in the way that in the time of the way COVID was, and just how the, you know, the influx of people going to these natural outdoor spaces, um, it was wild. It was really wild. It was so rejuvenating just to see the amount of people out there, people, you know, social distancing responsibly. And you know, it was fun while doing the run, just knowing that, you know, there's people out there that are just looking at me like, what the heck is this skinny guy doing? Like they have no idea that I started in, you know, 35 miles away in this small little town and worked my way all the way to that point, you know? So, yeah, so that was my jumping off point really. I ran that, and then kind of my eyes
How
opened
long
to
was
being
that?
like,
I'm sorry.
okay,
How long?
I think it was like 70 miles roughly.
Have you,
And
how
I
many
did it
100s have you done?
100.
Yeah.
Um, Technically, in terms of finishes,
Okay.
0.
So let's pause
I've
for a second because you said a
Yeah,
second ago that you think you can run 200 miles very fast. So, like, where has these ideas, because you also mentioned you want to do Iditarod, you want to do Arrowhead, which is
yeah,
135, like
yeah.
the like November in November you're attempting to run 106 miles. So like, where is it about going longer for you, or like what is this motivation? Because I know that like a lot of people, I want you to talk to about this, because a lot of people are like, that's, I think, the FKT boom, like people just wanting to do these crazy things. It's like I want to know why everybody's trying to do this. Is it because like you want to stay relevant? Like I realize you're raising money, but also like, you know, there aren't races, so it's not like there isn't anything like, oh hey, I did this, you know. So like talk about that, like why, because you're very fast. Like you honestly could be someone that like breaks a 50K record, or makes like runs himself into the Olympic trials. Like you're that person. So like like, and you mentioned, alluded to this in the email, like what has spurred you to want to do these longer and longer things?
I mean, I think for the longest time, I put myself into a box. I came from that track and field kind of background, more or less, marathon background, and I was like, I'm really good. I wanted to try and perfect and be really good at the 50-mile distance. And then I started working my way to the 100K, and I dabbled with 100 milers, but I didn't really have, I think, the experience and of failure under my belt. You know, being in the sport now for 8 or so odd years, I've made a ton of mistakes. I've had great successes, but I've also had great mistakes. And I think, you know, my mentality is always to improve upon those mistakes. And learn from them so that you can be better, you know, so that they don't happen again. And hopefully there's a greater story to be able to be told. And I just, you know, I think I was so focused on that results oriented aspect. I have to run one of the fastest 50-mile times ever. I have to do this, you know, I want to try and get to this point. And it was very time oriented. And my mindset now with everything going on has changed to where I'm like, you know, there's these crazy adventures and experiences, and I think I don't want to just see if I can survive that long distance. I want to see how fast I can do it in. So, you know, this is even before COVID. I was looking in January because with my job I get to have 2 months off in the winter. And that's where it's, you know, nice for traveling to Japan and all that kind of stuff. And in January I was looking and I stumbled upon, I was like, I wonder if anyone's ever run the whole length in New Jersey. I'm like, that'd be really cool. Like, that seed was already planted in my mind. And lo and
Did you
behold,
feel like you were getting like burnt out with just thinking about times all the time, or like did you feel
oh,
like you
definitely.
weren't getting as fast as you wanted to get? Like what went into it?
Definitely. Well, I think it was I, I was craving more of a sense of adventure, I think. Um, you know, when I would go out and have some of these training runs where I'm like, I'm not really focused about getting a certain type of training result, but just going out to like, you know, it was really going back to the roots of why I love running. Why I got into ultra running and trail running was just moving through nature and being like, wow, like just, you know, seeing things that you never get to see, and being able to just to really take in the whole environment around you, and just almost in a way, like I guess from a spiritual sense, feel like you're kind of a part of that community, you know? Like I always feel like anytime I run on a trail, I feel like I'm a guest to the world around me. Um, and I respect that environment, but it's, you know, I also feel like I'm a part of it too, that I'm contributing to it. And so, yeah, I mean, ultimately it's kind of me coming around full circle. I mean, I looked at stuff and I'm like, why haven't I been trying, why haven't I pushed myself to do these things? And maybe that's also because I've been kind of focused in one box or one realm for 8 years. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like now I'm starting to get a good knack for the 50-mile, the 100K distance. I'm like, and that's the thing, the towpath running 70 miles, and with everything all said and done, like my moving pace, I think I was averaging like, I don't know, like 750 a mile. And with I lost about 35-40 minutes of just stopping, and probably about 15 of that was actually like stopping at, like, if you can call it an aid station or a checkpoint. The rest of it was actually waiting to like cross the road, because there's virtually like, I think maybe 30, maybe more road crossings. And of course, with everything going on in with COVID, you got people out different times of the day that you wouldn't normally expect. So I lost a lot of time on the FKT that way. Like if I could go, I feel like if I could go back, I could probably improve upon the time. Um, but being able to like just persevere and push myself through that distance, I'm like, holy crap! If I kept that pace, um, I'm like, if I kept that pace for 100 miles, I'm like, some fireworks are going to be going off. Like, and I felt like, I'm like, it was like I've just been awakened. Like this has been inside of me all this time, and here's this run that I did, and also I'm like, wow, why haven't I really committed to trying to do this stuff? So that's where, you know, I'm like, I don't want to just run a distance to run it. I want to do it because I want to be able to, again, push my limits. Um, and doing something like running down the whole north-south distance of New Jersey. It's already been done, but why not try to shoot for a crazy time? Why not go out there, go through 100 miles in 16 hours and maintain that pace for the rest of the time? Maybe finish in 30 hours for 186 miles. I don't know. Why, like, I mean, you
Might as
see you
well
see
try.
athletes pushing the boundaries of the sport, right? You see athletes pushing the boundaries of the sport, and I ultimately think that that's where we're going to be heading. Like, just, and a lot of these events and challenges, these are things that are going to, um, allow me to see things that I normally would never get to. So, you know, running the freezing cold up in Minnesota, where maybe having some experience in snowshoes might be pretty helpful, but putting myself in these incredible diverse environments, like, that really interests me. And being able to use my feet as a vehicle to move through that and experience that. I mean, that stuff's priceless.
Yeah.
Um, so that's where I'm at. Like, as I wrote to you, I'm like, yeah, I'm still gonna race and compete. Yeah, would I love to do well at Western States? Absolutely. Is that a goal on my bucket list? Absolutely. Like, would I like to run a race like UTMB? Absolutely. But I feel like there's these other types of adventures that, like, might suit me better, that are things that I'm going to go for, because they're a little bit off the beaten track. But I think that stuff, well, we're going to find out. If I have a knack for it, we'll see. you know
Yeah. You know what? A race that jumps out at me that I just heard about in this past like 6 months is called the Cut 112. Have you ever heard of that? It's you
is that the
race
one in
across, you
Connecticut?
run on the Blue Blaze trails across Connecticut, and it's like gnarly. It's pretty gnarly. But it's like what you said. When I heard about it, I was like, well, you'd see a different part of Connecticut than you've ever seen. Like who Laura Reckworth is. A couple of your teammates have done it. Oh, I can't. The name escapes me of the who's the guy that has the most FKTs on your team.
I mean,
Um,
Ben is all about it.
Ben, there you go. Ben attempted it. I think he DNF'd. So, it's just it's a pretty gnarly trail, and it just reminds me of, like, you just want to experience different places. And you wouldn't think Connecticut would have these like gnarly blue blaze trails, but they do.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what this pandemic has done for us as runners too, is like, we've had to, like, look into, like, where we're living, right? And, like, look for opportunities there. Like, for me, I'm growing up in New Jersey. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I was ready to just get out of here as quickly as I could, right? I'm like, I'm going to Oklahoma. Like, that's the wild, wild west, Like, I was really enamored by that. And coming back here, um, you know, back to my roots and being like, you know what? Like, it's been fun because it's allowed me to rediscover this part of where I grew up that I totally overlooked in my childhood and in my high school years, and even when I would come back for winter breaks and whatnot in college. And it's it for me, like, that's where I'm like, like, upstate New York is one of my favorite places in the world. It's one of the most amazing places. Um, but I feel like you go out there in wine country, it's beautiful. Like New Jersey, it's like, it's smokestacks and, 8 lane highways, um so it's allowed for me to be like, you know what, this place is cool. Like, it doesn't get the respect it deserves. And you know what, I'm going to be an advocate for trying to promote this state to people, because there's a lot of great athletes here that people have no idea even exist. And there's a lot of great trails here that you can look on fkt.com, and there's, like, tons of stuff where I'm like, maybe I should just go run around and try to post these routes, because there's tons of long distance trail routes that don't even they have I don't no one's ever recorded them. um,
Yeah.
so it's also doing some of that, being a good steward for the state in terms of, like, trying to help promote running. And um, I never really imagined that I would kind of get motivated to do this kind of stuff, but here I am. And bring it on. I want to, and that's the thing with going to my new level of interest is the Pine Barrens, and growing up as a kid, I didn't know what the Pine Barrens really were. I went there on a couple field trips. Like it's like swampy. Like there's a lot of pine trees. Cool. Okay. There's cranberry bogs here. Like, okay. Um, but you know what? Doing the research on it, it's like, this place is unbelievable. How do more people don't run out here? Like the trails here are absolutely insane. Like, sure, they're not like going up straight mountains, but guess what? They are as rugged and rural, and like you're out there. I mean, 1,000,000 acres just right in southern New Jersey. I mean, the times that I've been there, it's like you never see, maybe see like one or two other people, and that's it. Like ever. Like especially in a place that's such a dense state in terms of population. I mean, things like that, those stories, those are the things that I want to tell to people, is that there's places that, you know, I think deserve to have a story to be told. And definitely my next chapter is to talk about the Pine Barrens, because it's a place that's totally caught my eye. It's a pretty wild and incredible place.
Well, that's something that we definitely promote here at the Trust Collective. Like, we agree the East Coast is a beautiful, amazing place, and you are a wonderful ambassador to the East Coast, which is why I wanted to have you on. And if anybody wants to know more about Cole, you can read his blog, Cresting the Summit, and also find him on MPFRNR, like the Mountain Peak Fitness website, which he is one of my teammates there as well. So to end the show, I like to play a game called Ideal Aid Station, and I know Gatorade's not going to be on this list, but are you ready to play?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Ideal sweet snack.
At an aid station or just in real life? Because if
like
there's an aid station that had freshly baked, well, if they had freshly baked cinnamon rolls, I'd be like, that would be the creme de la creme. That would be amazing. Though I will say, at the JFK 50 mile, the second best thing for an aid station, yes, the Christmas cookies, which got me out of a big low patch. So that station, props to those people. You guys helped salvage my race. So
yeah, the first time I raced there, that was like the best part of the race. The second time I didn't take them because I was kind of going a little bit, I couldn't eat that at that point. But all right, favorite salty snack.
Probably like some type of olive. I've definitely explored a lot of, in terms of the whole diet world. I used to be a beer and pizza and chicken wing kind of guy, and I felt like a little bit cleaner and healthier, and I feel like, especially in these longer efforts, olives are like unbelievable.
So tasty.
Yeah, so good. Maybe have a little bit of cheese with that, and that's one of my secret weapons.
Oh, I'll have to, that's great. That's like a pickle, but it has calories. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, favorite hot food.
Hot food. I mean, I like pizza, so pizza could be a good aid station thing.
Yeah, no, I get that a lot. Favorite sports drink.
Ooh, I don't know. That's a really good question. I would say a little bit of Tailwind mixed with some raspberry iced tea. I've done that before. Don't try it at home. You got to make sure you measure out things right, but that's been a strong concoction for me. That's worked out pretty well sometimes. Yeah.
Favorite non-sports drink.
Some type of tea.
Okay, you're like, I like tea, but I don't like cold tea.
I love cold tea. I love doing like sun tea, like brewing your own. Mm-hmm. If I'm at any kind of convenience store, I'm always going to the, getting a Snapple or what have you. So
brisk.
No, I'm not really a brisk guy.
Not brisk, no.
No.
Snapple, okay. Snapple. Favorite item of gear that you would love at your aid station?
Also a good question. I mean, probably for me, it has to be some type of collapsible bottle. I love those just because I've run so many different races, both marathons, and like New York City Marathon, and then also like a 100K race where I've run with those, and it's like, you know, they're easy to fill. You switch them out, and your arms never feel like you know, I've never had my arms cramp up, and I feel like
Oh,
that's a great thing to have. I mean, you know, and I'm definitely a believer of that kind of product, and just the efficiency of it's really great. Because I mean, once you drink it up, you just scrunch it up. You can hold it into a little ball. You can tuck into a pocket. So um, those are definitely a must-have. I'm always switching out bottles of my crew at any aid station.
that's a great tip. That's a really good tip. I like that idea. I've never used them, but that sounds like the muscle cramping, especially. Yeah. All right. Final question.
Yeah.
If you could have a celebrity, it doesn't have to be a running celebrity, just somebody at, like that meets you at your aid station. Either they can run a little bit with you, or you just be so excited to see them. Who would it be?
The Rock and Kevin Hart together.
Oh my!
I
That's a
feel
great
like
answer.
I feel like those two would feed off of each other, and they would both like. The Rock, I feel like, is more sensible, where he'd be like, Cole, you're taking too long. Get out of here. Come on, get going. Kevin Hart would just be spitting up. Just who knows? He's a loose rocket. You don't know what he's gonna say, but whatever he's gonna say, it's like, yes, I love green beans. All right, let's do this. You know, like I just feel like he's the guy that's just gonna get you like totally motivated by saying just nonsense.
That's
So I
great.
think those two would be perfect.
Those are great answers. Well, Cole, thanks again so much for coming on my show. Where can people find you and say hello online?
Yeah. So I'm all over crestingthesummit.com. That's my kind of website. On Instagram, it's Cole Crosby 41. You can find me on Facebook too, and I think I'm on Twitter too, but I don't really tweet, so don't follow me. Really, it's not that important there. But Instagram's definitely probably the best handle, Cole Crosby 41.
All right. Well, we'll be sure to do that. And thanks again for joining me, Cole. This was great.
Thanks, Ellie.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you
Bye.
too. Bye.